Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beautiful country that you're in. I am Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm the host of our daily show, Rebel Roundup. And joining me is my beloved friend from Saskatchewan, broadcaster, mom of six, author, troublemaker, small time politician, Lise Merle. Lise, how's it going?
Well, hello, my darling Sheila Gunn Reid, and hello, Rebel fam. It is such a it's just such a delight again to be here with you today on this absolutely god awful freezing day on the prairies. I see that our neighbors in Eastern Canada got a whole dump of snow on the weekend,
Yeah,
but we're 3 weeks into a deep, frigid, gross hellscape on the prairies, and thank God we're paying the carbon tax to keep ourselves alive. Sheila, aren't you just so delighted? Aren't you just so delighted?
I love seeing the dollar signs just go out of the exhaust of my furnace into into the yard. Like, it's -40 here today. The school
Hmm.
buses, once again, weren't running because it's too cold to run them. And yeah, it's 3 weeks into this, and we're about, 6 weeks out of a carbon tax hike on April 1st, where the joke's on us.
Yes. Well, I mean, on the rest of Canada, because those of us in
Oh, right.
Saskatchewan are very, very blessed to be able to turn up our furnaces and not have to pay carbon tax. So in my house right now, it's literally 26 degrees. It's as hot in my
Stop.
house as it is in Australia, which is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. A trip to Australia that I'm sure you'll all be interested in. But no, it's amazing being able to heat your house without paying carbon taxes. Like it feels like a little bit of a flex for the rest of
It sure
Canada.
is.
You'll be able to feel this level of delight when it finally gets turfed and none of us have to pay anything. But yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, when it finally gets turfed, pending the rest of the country not losing its collective mind and electing Mark Carnage, the author of the carbon tax, to lead the country, because he will definitely be elected to lead the Liberals in a few short weeks.
There are a bunch of polls that are more than a little bit worrying for us conservatives. There are more than a few polls. It's been suggested that there should be a pretty hard pivot on behalf of the conservatives, and I couldn't agree more. So can't wait to get into that.
Okay, let's tell everybody what we're doing, because it is a real packed pierogi of a show, a real stuffed cabbage roll, tightly wound up. And we've got a lot of things to talk about. I should tell everybody how they can get involved in the show and how they can support the show. There are a couple of different ways, once again. First and foremost, if you care about free speech and you don't like censorship, like me, and that means you're probably watching us on Rumble. Thank you for watching us on Rumble. Rumble allows you to support the work that we do out of the goodness of their heart and out of the goodness of your heart, instead of the forced way Justin Trudeau makes you support the non-independent media. You can leave us something called a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat over there. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we are hereby obligating ourselves to read it on air. But that is not the bar for entry, because every little bit counts. And if we have time, and we frequently make the time, if your Rumble rant is under that $5 US cutoff, we'll read it on air too. We just are not making it mandatory. And we broke the news last week after a lot of uh, careful examination of our content. We have been re-monetized on the censorship platform of YouTube. And I will continue to call it a censorship platform, because there are things that we say that are completely true that we cannot say on YouTube. So if you want the full unvarnished version of Rebel News, head on over to Rumble. But I know that YouTube is the world's second largest search engine. And so a lot of you prefer to watch us there. In fact, 1.7 million of you prefer to watch us there. So you can now, once again, leave us super chats on YouTube. And after the fact, I believe you can also leave us super thanks. So if you're not watching the show live, but you're catching the show and you're like, yeah, Sheila and Lisa are extra sassy today, let's leave them a little bit of cash. You can do that there too after the fact. So you've got a couple of different options. Something there will work for you, I hope. And if we get a little too spicy for YouTube, we may have to cut the feed and head on over to Rumble, for example, if we get into the whole dead naming and misgendering nonsense or start telling you too many truthful things about the last 4 years in medicine. We might have to cut the show and just go over to Rumble. So there we go. We'll play this game if it means financially sustainable company. But if you want the full unvarnished truth, you better be on Rumble anyway. So let's get into something crazy happening in Toronto yesterday. I thought my phone was upside down when I saw this stuff. Didn't you?
Yeah, it
Like,
was pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible what happened there.
yeah, 18 injured in a plane crash at Pearson Airport. The plane completely upside down on the runway. The crash forced Pearson to close for more than 2 hours, delaying flights and diverting at least 46 planes to Ottawa. And Montreal and elsewhere in the country. I'm sorry about your redirection to a couple of the more terrible places in the country, but yeah, what a crazy thing. Some of the footage being taken on the runway by the people being evacuated from the plane. Like, this is just a different time to be alive. This must feel like what it felt like when the people were getting those first images of like Vietnam from embedded journalists during the Vietnam War. Like, this is stuff we would not have seen 10 years ago at all.
The no, and I love the video of the people spilling out and taking a look back and getting an appreciation of what they just survived. Because you guys, for all intents and right here, yeah, right here. So you're walking on the ceiling because number one, you land upside down and you're hanging like a bat upside down in your seatbelt. Then you
Yeah.
let go. Then you drop into your head. If there's not somebody there to catch you, then you walk along the ceiling and get scooped out of the door, and then you take a look back and you see what you just survived. There are 80 people, and make no mistake, this could have been an absolutely catastrophic
Holy,
accident. These are 80 of the most blessed people who witnessed and lived through a miracle. Like, really, this could have been a terrible moment in Canada. And look at them, like all in their travel gear, their little hoodies and their little
yeah,
their yoga pants. Look at that, ladies, in a pair of
yeah.
capris. Just get scooped up. I mean, what an absolute miracle that happened there. And it'll be really interesting to see what exactly happened to cause this accident, because this is, I mean, having the wing flipped over the underside
Yeah.
of the plane, just unprecedented. We don't see these kinds of things happening, but thank God for all of those people, and for prayers answered in that moment. Because don't tell me that when they
Oh,
came in for that hard landing, that a whole bunch of prayers didn't shoot up like right in that second, and all of those prayers were answered. It was pretty incredible. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there were many atheists on that plane as it ended up flipped upside down on the runway, that's for sure. Like, that, it's just wild how that happened. This a Delta flight. Um, and I am always like, put on my seatbelt. If the plane's crashing, what is it going to do for me in the inferno that the plane will ultimately be? I'm not putting on my seatbelt, or I grumble. It's not to say that I don't put on my seatbelt, but I
Yeah.
grumble, and I'm always like, this is ridiculous. Like, who cares? Wow, guess who's putting on her seatbelt all the time now? Yeah, I bet you those 18 people who were hurt, hopefully they're okay. How much do you want to bet some of them didn't have their seatbelts on?
Oh, yep. And you would be tossed around like a popcorn kernel in a pan. I mean, it would just
Yeah.
be that would be such a terrible hard landing. But ooh, we those are 80 of the luckiest people on planet Earth. And
Maybe
this is a great news story, actually. Yeah.
it is a great news story. Now, maybe I'm not in Toronto, but understandably, I think Toronto had a hell of a snowstorm this weekend, and I think they also had some pretty serious winds. You could tell by
Yes.
the way the snow was blowing on the tarmac, and I
Yes.
also saw some footage of the windsock where it was like straight full and going the other direction. So I'm not an aviation expert, obviously, but I do watch episodes of Mayday before I get on planes for some reason. And oh, and I wonder if they got hit by a crosswind. Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
It
Oh my goodness.
it looks just like they had a really hard landing. Like, it
Landing
looks
and
like
then just
they
bounced
pretty
over.
Yeah, like a pretty extreme angle there. But who I mean, this will all come out in the wash. We'll figure out exactly what happened. But yeah, you can tell by the way the snow is blowing. For those watching us in exotic locales that don't have snow. Canadians can tell the temperature by the way the snow sounds and looks and blows.
Yes.
And you can tell that there is a stiff wind coming out of one direction there just by the drifts, the little drifts that have built up
Yeah.
there. And
How smooth there. Yeah.
that it was pretty cold that day too. So
You can
just
tell
thank
by
God.
how powdery the snow is, how cold it is,
Yes.
because
You
it's
can
not
tell you
heavy.
can and you can tell how cold it is outside by the way the snow sounds. When you
Yes.
step on it, it has a different crunch and a different noise. You can it's, this is
Yeah,
a
the sound.
distinctly Canadian set of skills. We're
Yeah,
proud
and
of them.
I can literally tell the temperature by how close the snowplow on the road, which is nowhere near my house. I can tell
Yeah,
you how cold it is by how close that thing sounds to my house, because the colder it gets, the more it sounds like it's literally right in my driveway, clearing
sound
out a
sound
spot.
sound
Yeah,
travels. Yeah, there. See, there's that windsock. Yeah,
see?
sound travels
Crosswinds.
differently in the extreme cold. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, there's no other reason why it would have flipped over on its back the way that it did and folded
After
the
it
wing under.
bounced.
But thank
Oh,
God, like just thank God. And the way that the first responders were there and the way and truly shout out to Pearson. We don't have a lot of
right.
things typically to say,
No,
uh,
the
but they
luggage
were
losers down at Pearson. Yeah, but good job, guys.
no really like you guys had things up and running again. I think within 3 or 4 hours. That was a pretty
Yeah,
incredible.
2
But
hours, they said.
but oh, 2 hours. No,
Yeah.
that was incredible. Well done, Pearson International Airport. You guys did us really proud. Well done.
Now this was a Delta flight. Uh, we don't know anything about the makeup of the flight crew. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
like that is
there
ju
are it seemed like
oh!
it came in at a really extreme angle. Like really hard, really fast, and really violent landing
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Could you
But
imagine,
who
like,
knows?
sitting in the airport just having your overpriced airport coffee, looking out
And
the
seeing
window
that
and
happen.
seeing this, and I'd be like, "No, I'm not getting on a plane today, thank you.
I wonder how many
I'm good."
cancellations they had right after this event. Like, I wonder how many people
Right?
just went, "Nope, I'm not
I'm
going to."
good.
As it turns out, I don't need to go to Frankfurt or Munich or wherever
Yeah,
people were flying to
exactly.
yesterday. That would be enough to terrify me. Yeah, that'd be enough to
Let's
terrify me. Anyway.
now, again, I was saying I don't know the makeup of the flight crew,
Mm,
but I do know that, Delta has a strong focus on DEI.
of course they
So
do.
this, as libs of TikTok posts, Delta's pinned video on their TikTok account is this.
Did somebody say slave? Did somebody
Does
say
not
slave?
inspire confidence. I
Okay.
don't know. This is no.
It absolutely, you're right. It does not inspire confidence. As a matter of fact, I would pay extra, okay, extra to know that I have a 58-year-old pilot named Jerry or
Yeah,
Jim or John or Jason, because you know that
yeah,
guy is not a DEI hire. And
right. I need
this
an
is I think
Irv.
a good old herb, a good
Yeah,
old herb flying the plane. I'd pay extra for that. No, but I
yeah,
don't. This is one of the things that these companies are slowly starting to learn is that DEI does not inspire confidence in their consumer base. We know that it is just a virtue signaling trap to get social credit from companies that hand them out like candy. And but when it comes right down to it, when people's lives are in the balance, when you have jobs that rely on technical skill, DEI is the antithesis to that. DEI is short for didn't earn it, and in jobs that require uh, like life altering and life saving skills, DEI has no place for. Well, DEI has no place for any part in our
Right.
society anymore, and we're watching the United States turn back on a lot of these things. Yeah, give me Irv.
I want Irv. I want
Yeah,
Irv to have gone to mass on Sunday.
yeah,
I want him to have 2 or 3 grandkids, and I
yeah.
want him to be 5 years out from retirement. That is the
That's
ideal pilot for me.
that
He's
is
got
that
lots to
is
live
the
for.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. He's chasing his pension. That's what we want.
Right.
We want pilots that are chasing their pension. That reminds me of that one time we almost picked up a whole herd of pilots, WestJet pilots
WestJet pilots.
In the Regina airport parking lot. That was one of the best moments of my life, Sheila, to be completely honest, is when we nearly kidnapped a whole herd of them. That was the
Right,
best.
I was gonna say some might say kidnapped, some might say abducted, would have been just a forcible hangout with
Mhm.
them till they
We
figured
should
out
have
what was going on.
We should have just let them in the van. We shouldn't have corrected them. We should have said, "Right this way, boys." Like, yes,
Right.
we are your pilot transport. Yes, right this way. 12 seats. Here you go.
Yeah. Get yourself a friend with a large scale passenger van because it is just endless opportunities for antics and hijinks.
It really is the best. It really
Yeah.
it does invite the best circumstances to unfold right in front of your face. And yeah, do we take advantage of it? Do we take advantage of it?
Okay, so that's the harrowing things out of Toronto Pearson. Let's get into Canada first because there was a very large uh, Pierre Poilievre Canada First rally
Mhm.
over the weekend. It was in Ottawa, in the belly of the beast, where people don't like rambunctious large crowds of patriots. They have
Mhm.
made it illegal there, and so that's one of the reasons I sort of enjoyed that Polyev was doing this there.
Mhm.
Um, but it didn't look like the Lord's waiting room that the Carney rally seemed to look like. They all look like people who sort of got off a delayed WestJet flight. Like that photo of Carney's crowd when he was in Kelowna, and they just sort of look like they're being told by the counter at WestJet that your flight is going to be delayed 5 hours, and here's your Chili's uh,
Coupon.
voucher. Yeah,
Yeah.
here's your voucher for Chili's. Go have a drink and a beer on us. Like that's how they look. Where they're like, some people are hungry, so they're satisfied with it, but other people are just sort of disoriented because they think they're going to miss their connections. That's what a Carney rally looks like. That is not what a Pierre Poilievre rally looks like. We've got a clip of the rally starting off the right way with
Mhm.
the anthem. I'm not clear if this is the old anthem or the new changed one.
Mm.
I'll have to dig to the bottom of that, but let's hear it. Maybe people who aren't ashamed to be Canadian. Fantastic. Who did that? Okay, that's enough for me. It looks like a rambunctious crowd, but honest to God, conservatives, what are you conserving if we can't even conserve the national anthem from woke nonsense? It is a
Mhm.
tiny but important act of resistance and rebellion to
Mhm.
sing the anthem the right way. It shows that you have not been captured by the
Mhm.
rewriting of our history. And
Mhm.
yet, at this rally, which I wanted to be excited about, and I still am kind of excited about, you guys sang the wrong anthem. Why? Why?
The the singer sang the wrong anthem.
The
Okay,
crowd sang the right one, I think.
the crowd sang the right one. This is what I'm going with. Is
Okay,
I heard
save it.
some sons, and then the singer, who would have had to have been very proper, because let's not forget, Sheila, the left would attack the singer had she sang the wrong lyrics. But
Sure.
this was so much better than the CAF officer with the nail polish, with the nail
Oh, I saw.
polish.
It's gross.
singing at the NHL games and at the Toronto Blue Jays games with his painted nails and his jewelry. She did a much better job, but yeah, she could be forgiven. She could be forgiven for singing
Sure.
the
Okay.
official lyrics, but I think that crowd was a All Thy Sons Command crowd.
Oh, I
That
hope so
looked like an
because
All Thy Sons Command crowd. Yeah,
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, which is why I'm slightly disappointed. I would have been like, I would have hired a singer who was like, "Will you sing the old anthem?" And that singer said yes. That would be the singer that I hired. I wouldn't even care if
yeah.
she sang on tune. I would be like, "That's the one." But yeah, I saw the blue nail polish the other day. I had uh, uh, a cadet in my house who
Mhm,
quit when they relaxed the dress and comportment standards. She looked very much
mhm.
forward to gelling the daylights out of her hair and making sure that her nails were impeccably manicured and her uniform was perfectly creased and her boots, you could see her little reflection in them. And then when they relaxed the dress and comportment standards, and then when they moved to Zoom over, is that,
So these
oh,
these nails are it's like an opaque milky pink. Okay, if I had to guess, these are that's a gel polish with a high
yeah,
gloss overlay on top of it. But what's ultra insulting is that the United States just got rid of, all of the
the
transformers.
DEI.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
transformers in their military. And this was an act of outright I would say disrespect to the United States to choose this person to sing that anthem.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. That is like a an active resistance going the other direction, I
Yeah,
think. But it's
yeah.
passive aggressive.
It's
You know what
totally passive aggressive.
I always say people mistake Canadians for nice, and Canadians like, "Yeah, we're so much nicer." No, we're not nice. We're passive aggressive. And sometimes when you want to believe we're nice, you don't pick up on it, but that is passive aggressive as hell right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. You're telling me that you couldn't have found another singer?
Yeah,
One that wouldn't be male with a face full of makeup and painted nails to sing
yeah,
the American national anthem? That was intentional. That was intentional and offensive
yeah.
by whoever made that decision. Gross. Just
Yeah,
gross.
the final straw for my cadet was when they asked them to put their pronouns in their Zoom meetings when they were planning like their meetings. And she was like,
Absolutely.
"Yeah, that's enough for me." There, she was considering a career in the military, and she was like, "You know what? Not this one."
Well, Sheila,
So
that sentiment is being repeated across the country. And I mean,
completely,
the military in Canada only has what, so 40, I think 46,000 members, 46,000 members. And they've been watching their membership drop off
yeah,
for the last 10 years. They've had plummeting membership. And don't tell me that doesn't have that their adoption of DEI doesn't have an
sure,
impact on their enrollment. It absolutely does.
yep,
Nobody that has a fighter spirit, okay, wants to participate in this woke garbage.
yep,
Nobody that's disciplined wants to put pronouns in their bios or be lectured by an institution that takes part in any of this garbage. And so
yep.
that's another thing that we can look forward to when we get a conservative government, is the return of, the warrior culture to our military, instead of this weak ass nail polish wearing, lisping, rainbow flag wearing weaklings.
It's it's just an absolute nightmare. It's a crisis of retention, it's a crisis of recruitment, and then they kicked out all the other good ones because they were unvaccinated. Like the
Yes.
ones that you would like to see in positions of leadership because they have a strong moral compass, uh,
Mhm.
we threw those people out for the yes men.
Yeah.
So God help us all.
Mhm.
More from that Pierre Poilievre rally, a part of his speech, work together, fight together, win together. That's how we'll put Canada first. I appreciate the message after 10 years of division and calling people names, and dividing us up from each other based on medical status or sexual identity. Um,
Mhm.
Interesting change in tone from the conservative leader compared to what we've been getting from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
We will be a self-reliant, sovereign country that stands on its 2 feet. We will reward work, unleash entrepreneurs, harvest our resources, make our own goods, trade with each other, build homes for our youth, rebuild our borders and military, honor our history, and raise our flag. What binds us together is the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street, wrapped in the protective arms of a solid border defended by brave soldiers under a proud flag. To preserve that flag and its promise, we must work together, fight together, and win together. That is what it means to put Canada first.
Last time I saw something that wasn't Canada Day looking that much like Canada Day, they called the Emergencies Act.
Yep,
on them.
they sure did.
Yeah.
They sure did. And now I think it's just really interesting that in this moment of crisis where we have the United States uh, asserting that Canadian territory they'd be interested in assuming for themselves, that there's this sort of groundswell of pride for the Canadian flag when it was so denigrated. And on the list of popular flags in Canada over these last several years, I mean, take your pick. It was the Ukrainian flag instead of the
Yep.
Canadian flag. It's the Hamas flag instead of the Canadian flag. It's the rainbow flag in front of the Canadian flag. And I think it's sort of heartwarming to see a resurgence in pride for our Canadian symbol. Um, but I think that one thing that the Conservatives could do is get a little bit of distance between Canada First and Team Canada, because their messaging is pretty similar. They're
Right.
the way
Yeah, I
the way
saw
that
one of Doug Ford's hats there, that team or Canada is not for sale. Hi, do you know what trade is? Like, I should hope the
yes,
things I'm making are for sale to somebody, whether it's the
yes,
widgets or the stuff that I'm growing.
yes,
Our export, our, our chief export agriculturally is canola. It goes to the rest of the world. Pulses, that's cheap, portable
mhm,
protein for the developing world. Like, to say Canada's not for sale? No, I want Canada open for business. That
yes,
actually should be the slogan. Conservatives, take that.
yes.
Canada open for business, both internally and externally. That's the big problem.
And to bounce off of that idea, Canada First is good, but Canadians First would be
Yes.
better. Would be better, because that is what's being missed in all of this. Is Canada's being overtaken by 5 million guests that have disrupted every part of our culture, every part of our government, every service that Canadians once enjoyed has been impacted by 5 million new Canadians who aren't paying for those services, who aren't paying for the government. And so that would be my one recommendation to the Conservatives, is to take a Canadians first stance. Let Team Canada bang their drum and be mad and take the orange man bad approach. A softer approach and a more loyal approach to our most important trade partner, America, would be most appreciated. And to just admit that, yes, everything that Canada makes is for sale. Everything we make and produce is for sale.
Right. Like, the idea should be, we have all these natural resources. We have all this arable land. We are the North American breadbasket. We have uh, a skilled workforce. We should be saying Canada is for sale. We are so productive, and we will unleash the productivity and natural resources of the Canadian workforce upon the world. We will get government out of the way so that it's not just buy Canadian, it is a Canadian takeover of the world with the ethical products that we produce, creating Canadian jobs, like what China's doing, but Canada, without, all the counterfeiting and the
Right.
toxins and the lead in the paint. Like, what, like the other, like, on the good side, like bizarro China. That's what we should be.
Yes, you're right. That's exactly what we should do. We should position ourselves and our products and everything we make and manufacture as proudly and ethically made in Canada. That is
For
what we
you.
should do. Yes. Yeah.
Made
With
for you by us.
with love from
Right.
Canada. That is what we should be doing. I mean, Canada still has a modicum of respect on the world stage. Uh, I think that the world has recognized that we are not our government, that there is a mile wide difference between the Trudeau Liberals and the regular and average Canadian citizen. And I think that that would go a long way. That messaging would go a long way.
I think so. I think we're still slightly missing the mark. We're still leaning into a lot of Doug Ford, Justin Trudeau
Yes.
messaging, when we should be
Agreed.
saying the way out of this is free enterprise. You should be the free enterprise party. And I still feel like we've got a little bit of protectionism happening there. And I don't like. I don't like
Me
that.
neither. No, me neither. No.
Now, Poilievre trotted out his secret weapon at the rally. And I really enjoy her because she's got a great story as a Venezuelan. Anna Poilievre came out and gave an incredible introduction to her husband, and then I'll tell you why I think we won't be hearing from Mark Carney's wife on the campaign trail.
And to stand up for all Canadians and put Canada first. And while threats are looming from abroad, only my husband can deliver that strong leadership needed to fight back. Today, we stand together in this movement to put Canada first. Not for the elites, not for the special interests, but for everyday people who make this country great. And to protect our country. So, let's take back our country. Let's put Canada first, and let's do it together. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor to introduce to you my husband, the strong leader Canada needs, and without a doubt, le prochain Premier Ministre du Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Okay.
That's First Lady material if I've ever seen it.
And classy. I don't feel like I am going to get sucked into some sort of MLM about how crystals cure cancer. That's the vibe, to use Freeland language, I get when I heard Mrs. Trudeau talk.
I was always scared that she was going to start singing. You know what I mean? That she was just
yes,
that she was going to bust into song. No,
she's going to warble out a tune at us. Yeah.
And in this profoundly important moment, here is a piece of interpretive dance that I hope that you will appreciate. And then she would just go off on her little artistic tangents. No, but Anna Poilievre is an absolute class act. Just to look at her, she is something else. And this is the kind of woman that we want representing us on the world stage. Yeah. She's adorable.
She feels like a warmer Melania. You know,
yes.
Just dressed like impeccably. Her makeup is great. Her hair is great. Just classy and smart as a whip with a great backstory. Do you know that her dad was a banker in Caracas, Venezuela, and then fled the socialists and came here to basically work his way up from the absolute bottom. So he worked collecting fruits and vegetables on a farm. He was a bank manager in Caracas, but he knew that he had to give his children a better life.
That's an incredible story. So he knows. They know.
He knows. And she knows.
They know what it takes. That's right. Yeah. And, they know what it takes.
And so imagine having all these like fake immigrants, the fake refugees, and then the people abusing our foreign student program to get here and then claim refugee status from countries where you wouldn't be able to claim refugee status from, but you're here, so why not?
Where 80% of them go on vacation in their home countries and then
Right.
come back to Canada. If you're an asylum seeker or a refugee and you go back to
Right.
your home country, your
You get
return
to
flight to
stay.
Canada should be canceled. That's right.
Right.
Thank you so much. You'll be staying in your home country. Yeah, that should be disallowed.
Right. So we've got this, like our conservative leader, next prime minister's wife, an actual refugee from communism. And you've got the liberals saying, well, if you don't let all these fake refugees in, you don't care about the plight of refugees.
Yep.
Galling.
Yeah, it
Galling.
really is.
We've got a video. As MP Michael Barrett said, Mark Carney, David Eby, and Bonnie Henry might consider the opioid crisis merely a challenge, but the stark reality paints a different picture. Let's see this.
The Trudeau-Carney Liberals legalized the possession of deadly drugs like fentanyl, meth, and heroin in British Columbia. And what was the result of these insane, wacko policies? Well, nearly 50,000 Canadians have died from opioid overdoses. That's a nearly 200% increase. That's more Canadians than who died fighting for our country in the Second World War.
Isn't that sobering?
That's a wild statistic. And then you have Mark Carney saying it's not a big deal in some place like Kelowna. Like Kelowna is absolute ground center for the opioid crisis. And the reason is that's where people, addicts from the prairies escaping -40 run out of money for a bit. And so you end up in Kelowna and you're stealing and you're getting your government funded drugs there. And so it's a nightmare. Like in 1 year, I think it went up 25% alone, like year over year, the opioid deaths in Kelowna. And then Mark Carney is there saying it's not a big deal. I guess not in whatever American city Mark Carney's living in, the Hamptons, maybe wherever he's at, because I don't know if he actually has owned a house in Canada, or maybe he owns a house in Canada, but does he get the mail in Canada, if you know what I mean? So maybe it's not a big deal there. But it is in regular Canadian cities that are just polluted by this poison.
Well, 50,000 or nearly 50,000 Canadian families would beg to differ with Mark Carney in saying that it's not a crisis, that it's a challenge. Could you imagine the future prime minister of the country if you lost your child to this absolute outrage? Could you imagine losing your child and then having the future prime minister of Canada maybe say that it's not a crisis? That it's it must have been just a challenge for your family to live through that kind of loss. It's egregious. Opioid overdoses in BC are the leading cause of death for young people.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he has the gall to say that it's not a crisis. This is a man who lives behind gates, who lives in high rises and takes an elevator and a limousine everywhere he goes. And this is the reason why he doesn't believe that this is a crisis affecting Canadians, because he is so crazily out of touch with what's happened here because of Liberal NDP policies.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Every single one of those deaths is a family on the other side.
Oh.
And those are just the deaths. Like that 50,000 people, their families, their moms, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, before that person has died, their children, before they die, you've already lost them to this. You've lost who they were to the demon goblin that lives inside of them, that causes them to steal and lie and connive and abandon their children and neglect their children and abuse the families around them, take advantage of the love that their families have for them. And it is the families who end up picking up the pieces. So long before these people are dead, they're gone. You don't have a clue who they are. And there are a lot of families who are mourning the death of their loved ones right now, so much more than that 50,000 They're mourning the death of the loved one who's not even gone yet. But it's
Yes.
no big deal.
Yes. And without any recourse,
Yeah.
especially in British Columbia. Alberta and Saskatchewan have taken a recovery-based approach where we are not entertaining that safe supply is a thing that works for the people in Alberta or Saskatchewan. Our approach is a human-based approach and a recovery-based approach to get people off drugs, to get them healthy, and to get them successful in life. Not to say that opioids aren't a real issue here, because they are. It's just our
Right.
approach is so much different. But imagine the slow walk through watching one of your loved ones devolve into a life of addiction. And when people devolve into a life of addiction, they also devolve into a life of homelessness. They also devolve
Yep.
into a life of crime, because people who are
Yep.
addicted will do anything to get their hands on
Anything.
prostitution, sex trafficking. I mean, the way that this issue blows apart a family is just incalculable. Mark Carney should be disqualified. Honestly, he should be disqualified for what
Yeah.
he said on this issue. And if this doesn't show Canadians that he is the exact wrong, out of touch, entitled, elitist that he is, that he would not recognize the pain that Canadians go through while they watch their loved ones fall down this slippery slope, is just, it's just unforgivable.
Yeah, he should talk to some grandparents who are raising their grandkids, not because their child died, but because they don't even know if they're dead. They have no clue.
They just don't know
He
where
should
they
talk
are.
to them. They just don't know
Yeah.
where they are. They don't know if they're dead, gone, sex trafficked, murdered. They have no clue. But all they know is that they're raising their grandchild right now, and they have those questions to answer. It's not a crisis. It's a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge. Anyway.
Mhm. Yeah. A
Let's
handful would be a challenge. 50,000 is an unmitigated disaster. That's what that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mid-sized prairie city. He's shrugging off. We've got a quick ad read, and then boy, we've got a few chats, which is awesome. And then so let's do the ad read, the couple of chats, and then I think we have Rebel ads. Do we? Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. So this one's for Rumble Premium. It's a sponsorship from Rumble that's incredibly important to the survival of both Rumble, but us here too. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. I love how they're all like, oh, we're stepping away from that now. Wonder why, Facebook? You worried about being trust busted? Rumble didn't, though. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment, believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us on Rumble. Lise, do you want to do those chats? Can you see them in front of you?
I cannot see them on my screen. They have just they have disappeared. But if they go up on this screen, I'll be able to read them.
Got one from Mark. That's Kane and Mark. Can you see that?
I can't see the bottom.
Oh, that's okay. I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Kane and Mark says, "Good morning, Lady Rebels." Well, hey, Kane. I know Kane. He's a regular supporter of Rebel News, a regular viewer, and he was frequently at the Whistle Stop when I was on Whistle Stop watch for some good 6 weeks there. You know the Whistle Stop. We've had many a good time down at the Whistle Stop.
It is a great time in Mirror, Alberta. That's one of our favorite places to hang out. So hello, Kane. Thanks so much for being here.
Beautiful downtown Mirror, Alberta. Population, I think it's 480 or something. We've got another one from Aaron Burton, 32, gives us $5, says, I hope you both had a great long weekend. My mom intends to vote for Carney. You know what? Every family is stricken by mental illness. Yours is.
I feel
It's
that's
touching
so
all of
hard.
us.
Oh, I feel that's so hard. My conversations with my godmother, my little beautiful godmother, Sheila, you know the one that still buys
Yes.
my jammies and Christmas dresses. Oh, she is just
No,
enamored. She is just enamored. But then
no.
again, she does not have the internet. So she watches the
CBC.
TV and
The
she does
TV
what
got
the
her.
TV says. Yes. Yes. Probably the best thing I could do is hook her up with a little tablet and let her go nuts, but it's just too much for her. It's just too much
Oh,
for her.
so sad. Uh, he says his mom intends to vote for Carney in October because she said she's smart. I'm going to show her last week's gun show to hopefully change her mind. You know what? Please, that's why I'm doing these shows, the Carney exposés, reminding people that if life is really expensive right now, thank Carney. He did it. He was the full bucket that poured his nonsense into Justin Trudeau's empty bucket of a brain. And here we are.
Mhm.
Now I think we have a Freedom Passport ad, and then we'll get back and talk about what April Hutchinson is doing on the weekend, and then we'll get into some more Mark Carney stuff.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
All right. Well, regular viewers will know that I cordially invited Lise to be my date at an upcoming event with April Hutchinson, and she politely and promptly RSVP'd that she would be coming. So I should tell you all so that I can cordially invite the rest of you now to come with us. So April Hutchinson is on a speaking engagement with our friends over at Canadians for Truth. You'll, of course, recognize hockey superstar Theo Fleury and our friend and alumnus Adam Stos on Saturday, February 22nd, 6 p.m. Show starts at 7 at canadiansfortruth.ca. Get your tickets. April is talking about her journey from, I would say, troubled young person through addiction to become a Team Canada powerlifter to then somebody facing up to a 2-year suspension for speaking out against a trans identified individual who decided to compete against biological women as a powerlifter. Again, I'm doing the whole dancing around the issue for YouTube's sake, but I think you guys can pick up what I'm putting down. She will be at Church in the Vine in Edmonton, one of the greatest places on the face of the earth. Staunch defenders of freedom. Pastors Tracy and Rodney Fortin, they reopened Church in the Vine during the pandemic to the lost and shepherded their flock through the pandemic. And for that, they received an $80,000 administrative penalty from the province of Alberta under Jason Kenney. Through your help and through the expertise of our friends over at the Democracy Fund, they were able to overturn that fine and have the $80,000 given back to them. So that's the story of Church in the Vine. Now you know the story of April, and you can hear more on Saturday, February 22nd. Get your tickets at canadiansfortruth.ca. I'm very much looking forward to that. I will definitely be there early because I need to visit with everybody.
That's right. No, it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful event on Saturday. So if you're in the Edmonton area, we would love to see you and meet you and spend some time together. And April Hutchinson really is one of the most motivating, I'll say motivating women that I've certainly ever met. And me and Sheila got a lot of time for that girl.
Yeah.
She was brave.
Love her.
when very few people would be brave in just telling the truth, and she paid a mighty price. But fortune favors the brave, and I do believe that people will turn out to support April and she deserves all of that support. She's just an awesome human. Yeah, we just love her.
Yeah,
we love
and
her.
Life is better and more fair for every single Alberta girl because of April Hutchinson's advocacy to the Premier of Alberta.
Yeah, it was largely because of April Hutchinson's efforts, along with those of Coach Linda Blade from Alberta, who intervened on behalf of the girls of Alberta and got Danielle Smith, or compelled Danielle Smith, to understand how terrible some of the policies really did a disservice to the athletes and the women and the children of Alberta. And so April will tell you how she got that done, and we will amplify her until this happens across the entire nation of Canada. Because of course this has to happen across the entire nation of Canada. Of course it does.
100%. Now, thanks to Alexa Lavoie watching something in French for me, we caught Mark Carney saying one thing in English and another thing in French. Yes, I just asked the team to pull this up. It wasn't on the list. It happened this morning, early this morning. Like, I guess it happened yesterday, but I was watching it this morning. Mark Carney, you remember last week he said he would use emergency powers to get projects done, by and large green energy projects. You know, like he would abuse the emergency powers of the government to get preferential energy projects done.
Just wild.
Green ones though, right? This is what he says in French. He said that he would never impose a pipeline on Quebec. So pipelines, no emergency powers. Green energy projects, emergency powers. If you oppose it, you're going straight to jail. So isn't that interesting? Let's watch this little clip. Alexa translated it for us.
Monsieur Poilievre, il parle hier de Energy East, le projet oléoduc. Il n'a mentionné jamais le Québec, jamais les nations premières, jamais d'autres provinces. Il est comme l'empereur, il décide, tout se déroule. C'est pas le Canada, c'est pas le Canada. OK, premier point.
Mais donc, vous n'imposeriez jamais un pipeline au Québec ou à d'autres provinces?
N'imposerez jamais.
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 Une loi d'urgence.
Mais je vais utiliser mon gouvernement, si j'étais premier ministre, mon gouvernement utiliserait nos pouvoirs d'urgence afin d'accélérer des projets qui sont dans l'intérêt national. Okay. Mais il faut le décider avec les provinces, avec les Nations Unies.
Si une province dit non, vous ne passez pas de tuyau.
Oui, absolument.
Vous n'imposez
jamais
pas.
Au Québec, on ne le dit pas.
Oh my God!
Infuriating.
Oh my God. You know what? And thank God for Alexa. Let's just, everybody, thank God for Alexa for translating that for us, because that is such a telling moment. This is a man who speaks out of both sides of his face to different audiences. What a disingenuous absolute liar this man is. What an absolute liar this man is. He's telling Quebec everything that they want to hear while screwing the rest of the country. Well, absolutely hooping the rest of the country, including the First Nations people of Canada, PS, because the peace and prosperity of the First Nations people is absolutely linked to the peace and prosperity of non-First Nations people. And what makes us all prosperous is oil and gas. And what would make us even just unstoppable is the building of pipelines, especially through Quebec. And for him to say this out loud, oh, Canada, this is red flag. This is absolutely like wave the red flag. This is 42 million red flags right there. What he said. I'm so happy she caught that for us.
Yeah. He's saying one thing in English, another thing in French, and the media are never going to call him on it. They're just letting him speak to this country like we're two different groups of people. And sometimes I truly believe there are two different Canadas. I live in one and the media lives in another one. But he just said out of his mouth, an east-west pipeline is not in the national interest.
But green projects are projects that would enrich his friends over there at Brookfield. Are. That's
Yes.
right. That's exactly right, guys. This is an oligarch. This is an overt oligarch that is going to economically rape Canadians for the well-being of his stakeholders over there at Brookfield, and we are okay with this. We're okay with this.
I want, like, he's fine to back pipeline projects in Brazil and the UAE. Brookfield is perfectly fine with that. But a nation building pipeline project to bring oil and gas from Alberta to the rest of this country is not a nation building project. If it were up to this guy, the railway never would have gotten built.
This is wild. This is absolutely insane. And to think, Canada, that we could end up with this guy as our prime minister without a single Canadian ever casting a vote in his favor is absolutely insane. Like, I really hope that there are constitutional lawyers taking a good, hard, long look at this, because even though there's loopholes that are available to let this happen for him, if it weren't 40 degrees below zero, I believe that there would be rioting in the streets.
Yeah, but that
God.
is the attitude that got Energy East killed the first time.
Exactly.
And that is the attitude that got Northern Gateway killed. That is the attitude that somehow, for some reason, left Canadians on the hook with Trans Mountain, when Trans Mountain was a $5 billion private sector project. If the government would just enforce the law, they wouldn't. They gave one province a veto for some reason. And then now Canadians are stuck with something 7 times the cost. This is a continuation of Justin Trudeau's energy policy on steroids, because it's sold to us by a new fresh face.
Well, and a question, I think, for Mark Carney that would be excellent if somebody could ask him is it in the national best interest for Alberta to leave Confederation? Is that in the national best interest? Is it in the best interest that Alberta and Saskatchewan and mainland BC leave Confederation? Is that in the national best interest? Because if we don't have assurances, if Western Canadians don't have assurances that whoever comes next is going to work in our best interest, the sentiment for separation is building every single day. And and Mark Carney is actually doing that movement a lot of favors by saying things like this. You think the sentiment for separation was big in Quebec back in the 90s? Well, right now, the sentiment for separation in Alberta is even greater than that of Quebec. So well done, you guys. Absolutely well done. What you're doing is you're chasing the most productive in the entire country away from the country. Western Canadians feel betrayed by this government. They feel betrayed by the country. And if Quebec doesn't start being on Team Canada, so they like to call it, they're going to have a unity crisis on their hands within a couple weeks, I would imagine. Yeah.
One more Mark Carney impromptu thing. I wanted to talk about this because I think it happened. The video was sort of cut over the weekend. And it's Mark Carney admitting that he thinks Canada needs a globalist and elitist prime minister like himself because he knows how the world works. Okay, let's hear it, Mark.
When you sit down with your key people and you're being absolutely honest with yourself and with each other, what do you define as your core strengths and your core weaknesses?
Look, your strength is always your weakness. So my strength is, I think you touched on it at the start. My strength is I know how the world works. I know how to get things done. I'm connected. I can deliver for the country. And my weakness is, people will charge me as being elitist or a globalist, to use that term, which is, that's exactly, it happens to be exactly what we need. My weakness as a politician is I've not been a politician, right? So I didn't go straight into, as you observed, the killer. The point was right, but the delivery was, I'm working on it. I am That's fair. I haven't been a politician. I am a pragmatist. I am a leader. I'm a leader of organizations. I'm a leader in crises. So that's the strength that I'm trying to project, and it resonates. I feel it resonates across the country.
I care too much and I love too hard. Those are my weaknesses. I work too hard. Those are my weaknesses. Like, this is like a Michael Scott self-evaluation performance review.
My strengths, my weakness is my strength. This is there ain't nothing. The problem is I just know too many upper echelon people. Can you imagine all across the world? Okay, all across the world, normal citizens are outright rejecting the idea of globalism. We are rejecting the idea of an overarching elite class of humans who rule over us without any representation. And yet Mark Carney thinks that is a gold star next to his name.
Right.
Vote for me because, I will take my marching orders from Klaus Schwab over there at the World Economic Forum. I'll take my marching orders from the World Health Organization, the World Pharmacy Organization, the United Nations. I'm so well connected, this guy says, that all of those super ultra educated elitists and I will make the decisions for you poor stupid Canadians who don't know any better. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Canada, reject this outright. Oh my God.
Well,
can you imagine, Sheila?
I know. Like, what the thing is, here's why you should vote for me. I'm very well connected with the World Economic Forum. Like what? Where have you been the last 5 years? People are so done with some far off educrat and elitist in a corner making decisions for you halfway across the world about how best to live your life. There is a movement towards personal autonomy and sovereignty like never before. And it's because we just lived through what happens when somebody in a cubicle decides how you're going to run your life.
We all saw the disastrous effects of these global conferences, right? Global conferences never became real popular until about 10, 15 years ago, right? And every time, and Stephen Guilbeault is the one that taught me the evils of these global conferences, because every time Stephen Guilbeault went to a climate conference, he would have a presser at the climate conference and announce some new harebrained thing that was going to make Canadians poorer. Okay, this was like 10 years ago. I started seeing Stephen Guilbeault do these things. Now we know that when these crazy rich elitists all get in a room together and make decisions within their validation circle jerk, that it never works out in the best in the best interest of the citizens that they're there to represent. As a matter of fact, I do believe that it's a winning political platform to say, I am banning anybody under my party from traveling internationally to any event that has to do, like any unelected forum. What another unelected forum not unelected forum, but informal forum that's coming up in Canada, in Banff later this spring, this summer, is the G7. The G7 is another one of these informal forums where all of the heads of state get together and make decisions about financial regulation. This never serves the best interest of the people of the country. And if politicians wanted to win, they would put an end to all of those meetings. What we do by Zoom, they can do by Zoom. When they travel internationally, nothing ever good comes of it. My God, people are waking up to this.
What I love is that he describes himself as a globalist, but if somebody from the right calls somebody a globalist, that's an anti-Semitic slur of some kind, at least according to the New York Times and the frantic weirdos and boiled potatoes who work at the CBC. Globalism, a far-right conspiracy theory buoyed by Trump. And then it's Mark Carney's like, yeah, I'm a globalist. What of it? Pick a lane.
I'm one of them. But it's like, it's staggering. This is a guy. You know who else was a globalist? Ghislaine Maxwell. You know who else was a globalist? Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm glad you brought me back there because I forgot to mention it. the reason I think that we are like, where's Mark Carney's wife? You wonder what's happening. Where is she? You know, we see Anna Poilievre out there looking great and talking wonderful things and just being articulate and really warm and energetic. And we're all like, where's Mark Carney's wife? And I'll tell you why Mark Carney's wife won't rear her head on the campaign trail right there. That's why, because some pesky Rebel News journalist is going to be like, "Hey, how closely did you know Ghislaine Maxwell? Did you ever go to Billionaires Island or Pedophile Island? Did you go to those places? You know, like, do you have her in your cell phone, or did you have her in your cell phone? Like, those questions will be asked. So she will not be on the campaign trail. No, no, no.
She comes from a very aristocratic family, like a very aristocratic family. Her sister is an aristocrat.
One might say a globalist.
a globalist. Her sister is a titled aristocrat over there in England, and the relationships between, you know, Prince Andrew and all of the, you know, Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell and all of those globalist globetrotters. She would have to answer a lot of salty questions by questions, and that is the reason why. And she's not photogenic. I'm just going to put that. I'm sorry, I can't not be petty.
Neither am I. Look, I'm not. I don't photograph well. I understand it's a congenital birth defect for me. I don't photograph well.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But yeah, there's something about her that is just so very upper crusty, bland. You know?
Yes. Yeah. There's I don't feel like there's, and I don't think that she'd be able to resonate with everyday Canadians, given that her entire career is based on you know, green slush funding and working with Gerald Butts. So tell me that you're completely out of touch. Like, tell me without telling me. Tell me that you're completely out of touch. This is, what is her name? Diana Carney, or Fox Carney? That is her name.
That's her name.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into the list of things, because I know we've got a ton of stuff to talk to, and I really super duper want to talk about these people traveling to Australia in the middle of a cold snap. Wonder why they did that. But Ezra has this video of Liberal Immigration Minister Marc Miller doing an impromptu press conference outside of the Conservative Party Canada First rally. And he said it's unpatriotic of Pierre Poilievre to say that Canada is broken, which is like shorthand for it's unpatriotic of you to not vote for the Liberals. It's unpatriotic of you to criticize the Liberals. By the way, every day Marc Miller looks more and more, as I described him on X, as Renfield to the Carney Trudeau Dracula. He is not getting enough vitamin D, and maybe eating too many bugs.
Is it your representation to President Trump that the border is not broken?
Well, I think what we have to understand with President Trump is, does he want a border or doesn't he want a border? If he wants,
is it broken or not? You've said Canada's not broken.
If he wants a 51st state, he obviously doesn't want a border. We need to secure in our own national interest the border. That's what I've been doing as the immigration minister in the 2 years that I've been doing it. I think we've shown an incredible decline of people moving north-south. We have a challenge of people coming into Canada, asylum seekers coming into Canada, and that's the U.S. That's the U.S.'s job, and that's what I communicated to Tom Homan when I spoke to him directly. Having a border that is well managed, our southern border, their northern border, is in both our national interests, and that's what I'll continue to do. That's what the Minister of Public Safety will do.
Is it your representation?
An absolute failure as a minister, an absolute, like, we can lay down every one of Canada's immigration problems at the feet of Marc Miller, who, P.S., looks like he's been dipped in Vaseline. Okay, this is a man that looks like he's been just like pasty and dipped in like shiny in all the weird ways, dipped in Vaseline. But this is a guy who is 100% responsible for every immigration issue that every Canadian is suffering right now, and yet he's just like so lacking in self-awareness that he would keep professing, well, this is my job, and I'm going to continue doing a great job. Dude, you have done a miserable job. You were an abject failure on the immigration front. And you stand there and lecture Pierre Poilievre. I mean, talk about liberal entitlement right there.
Yeah.
That is the face of liberal entitlement.
One more, Ezra asked Marc Miller, who I'm sure Miller regretted his impromptu press conference because rebels were there, right? Asking real questions. And he asked if Tom Homan raised Canada's dangerous decision to bring in thousands of unvetted migrants from Gaza. And wouldn't you know it, Tutankhamun's mummy refused to answer.
Did Homan mention the Gaza refugees?
I won't speak to what Mr. Homan said in private. The conversations were productive, and we'll keep working on making sure our borders.
How are you vetting them? Is it Europe?
I won't share what he said in private, but I will share that we agreed that I'm doing a great job and that I'm going to continue doing a great job. Come on, bro.
Right.
Come on, bro. Great question, though, Ezra.
Yeah, and I am sure, given that we have become a net exporter of terrorism these days to upstate New York, that was raised. I'm sure that question was raised, particularly when Trump has a crackdown of immigration from those places and a plan to relocate them within the region or at least to other Muslim countries. So, I can't imagine the Americans aren't concerned about us bringing in people from a place in the world where they are fed a steady stream of extremism in UN-run and UN-funded schools, where 80% of them express some sort of affection for Hamas, and the support for Hamas has gone up post-October 7th.
Mm-hmm. Nope, true story. I hope every time one of the Liberal Party ministers gets in touch with their counterpart in the United States, I hope those Americans just rip them a new one. I hope every single time they're holding their feet to the fire, I hope that they're not, playing the diplomatic card, because God knows these Team Canada fools are not playing the diplomatic card when they're here in Canada.
You know what? That shiny, weird skin of Marc Miller's, he looks like a bog mummy. Like mummies that are thrown into a bog during Celtic times.
And they're unearthed. Yeah, they're unearthed like several thousand years later. Yeah.
He's a bog mummy, where they have that sort of shiny skin. The acid in the bog makes their skin shiny, but he's very
sort of translucent.
Decomposed and angular. Yeah, he's a bog mummy.
There's nothing good to say about Marc Miller.
Marc Miller, the
Trudeau's bridesmaid, flower girl. Yeah, Trudeau's flower girl, Marc Miller.
Ring bearer. Okay.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Forgive us.
And moving on to always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We've got Chrystia Freeland. She is celebrating Flag Day. How? Well, hopefully she didn't call in the Emergencies Act on anybody waving flags, because we know she did that about 3 years ago. She doesn't think the Canadian flag is a symbol of extremism, white supremacy, or sedition. Isn't that weird? All of a sudden, she's a patriotic Canadian these days. So let's hear from her.
Canadians and Americans are friends. We're often family. We are allies. We have fought shoulder to shoulder in 2 world wars, in Korea, in Afghanistan. We won't pick a fight with you, but if the fight comes to our door, remember, we love our country just as much as you love yours. Are we going to let anyone stop us? Are we going to let anyone drown out our voices?
I hope so.
Are we going to let anyone stop us from fighting for Canada?
Oh, God.
Okay, the truth of the matter is, Chrystia Freeland, okay, if the Americans wanted to take us over, they could do it. What did I say yesterday? Yeah, with mild insults and a side eye, okay? Chrystia, stop acting like you're so tough. Like, I've never heard a voice that is
so shrill.
that is more weak ever in the universe. That is the voice of weakness that came through and we are so sorry. We're so sorry, Rebel viewers, about subjecting you to the voices and the videos with Trudeau and Freeland and Marc Miller. But it's really important that we document all of this in real time so that it will make sense when what happens later happens. So we're real sorry about that. Oh, sorry for making you suffer through that. We know that you've heard her say, Mr. Speaker, enough times to put you in your graves. But yeah, she's the the peak of annoying.
We won't start the fight. We won't.
But we will
finish it. We will finish it. Like, I know that I can get shrill. I realize that, so I make an attempt to not raise my voice because I can get a little harpy. But man, she should not be yelling into a microphone at all, ever, never.
What the crazy thing is we're like less than 20 days away from never having to hear from her again, which is so incredible. What a blessing, Canada. I mean, the way we should have mock funerals for these people just to celebrate.
I'm not one to recommend poor health choices, but has she considered whiskey and cigarettes? I think it would do wonders for her voice. Just a pack of darts.
Come in there like RFK, just growly. Oh, it would improve the delivery. It really, honestly would.
Get on some Fireball and some, I don't know, Rothmans. Did they still have Rothmans?
Players Light Regular. Those are
Players
the
Light
ones.
Regular. Those are the ones. I would rather her like I want her to sound like sore from yelling bingo and just sucking in bingo fumes all day. Better than that. It's God help us. Okay, I think Olivia tells me we can skip over what we don't want to talk about, which is good because I've lost where we were. Okay, let's go to Resistance Coffee Company. I enjoy Resistance Coffee Company very much. I should tell you, sent me some free coffee one time. They haven't sent me some free coffee in a very long time. This is not formulating my opinion on them. By the way, the coffee was good. But Resistance Coffee, this is what like if you're not following Resistance Coffee on Twitter, which is an actual coffee company who is opinionated. So like Just Bins is an opinionated garbage company. This is an opinionated coffee company. I think they're actually from Saskatchewan, if I recall correctly. This is what they said. If you want to know what it feels like to watch a Liberal leadership debate, just imagine 2 hours of consecutive colonoscopies. If you want to know what it feels like to watch it in French, imagine the same thing, but with PVC pipe.
Jeez.
They're so funny.
Oh, well done, the Resistance Coffee Company. Well done. Oh, that's
no,
funny.
they're in Ontario, I guess. I thought they were in Saskatchewan for some reason. Maybe that's the last time I saw them was in Saskatchewan. At a Rebel News event. Actually, you were there. Yeah. But yeah, if you need coffee, they ship nationally. And that's a free plug from me to them because they're particularly frisky. Let's go on to what do we do? Mary Ng. Let's talk about Mary Ng. I know you want to talk about Mary Ng, so you start.
Well, everybody, yes, our what is she? She is the Minister of International Trade and Export, is she?
Yeah, she's the Minister of Export, Trade, Economic Development. So if you're wondering why you are a Canadian manufacturer and you're having trouble getting to international markets, or for that matter, trading internally, it's this lady.
Export Promotion, International Trade, yeah.
And economic development. She's responsible. She's also implicated as being someone who was the recipient and beneficiary of foreign interference. However, I think it was unwittingly, because I don't think Mary Ng does much wittingly. And
she was also hauled in front of the ethics commissioner a bunch of times, found in non-compliance with ethics laws for giving contracts to people she is friends with. Okay, just giving them contracts.
Just a liberal thing. Just another. That's a day that ends in Y with the liberals.
Insider dealing there. But Mary-Ann, okay, takes to the internet this weekend. And this is the one story that got my knickers in a knot, Sheila. Not just on the weekend, but my knickers in a knot all the way through all of next week. And she brags. Okay, she brags. Big news, Canada. We are, Team Canada is taking on Australia. We're bringing our biggest ever trade mission to Australia with 220 plus delegates from across all 10 provinces. And then she posts this video. Can we play it? Can we play the video?
Please, the video. Play.
Yeah, I do think that it's important that people see. Yeah, look at this delegation.
It's an entire plane.
Look.
Ugh.
So instead of playing nice with the Americans, our closest and most reliable trade partner, Mary-Ann loads up an entire jet full of Canadian kleptocrats, Canadian kleptocrats, flies them 15,000 kilometers, the furthest place away that you can get from Canada.
Right. She's going to circumnavigate the globe by the time she's done. Yeah.
Yes, this is so while Canadians are lining up at food banks, while tens of thousands of Canadians have gone homeless because of terrible, awful, no good liberal policy, Mary-Ann takes to the internet and brags that 220 of her closest friends have made their way to Australia. Australia, if you're listening, listen, if you encounter a herd of profusely sweating Canadian bureaucrats, okay, please undercook the chicken. Please undercook the chicken, because nothing would make Canada happier than to know that 220 let-them-eat cakers have suffered from a terrible case of gastrointestinal issues on a plane, a 15-hour plane ride back to Canada with only 2 bathrooms on the plane. Okay, nothing would make us happier than this. These are the exact type of people, Sheila, that need to be tarred and feathered and marched through the streets, being yelled shame at, and then lose their jobs. Because while we are in a national crisis of many, many different layers of national crisis, this is tone deaf on a level that is absolutely inexcusable. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, Sheila, the cost to ship 220 slightly portly, profusely overweight bureaucrats, very well-fed bureaucrats to Australia? This is a multi-million-dollar trip, and they're doing it while Canadians suffer. It is insane. It is insane.
Round trip to Melbourne. I don't know what it is right now. About $2,100. Yeah, that's Air Canada, because that's what these guys would fly. About $2,000 round trip, and that's not the luxury hotels that they're staying in.
That's not their meals. That's not their their internal transfers. 220 people from every province in the nation. This is what they did. They could have got away with a delegation of 3. They could have got away with a delegation of 3, and not even that. When you listen to the Liberals talk about carbon, saving the planet, the amount of carbon dumping that they did on this trip, and not to mention any trade that's done with Australia, the transport costs. Okay, the transport costs to get our goods to Australia or Australian goods to Canada is enormous compared to our next door neighbors in America, and never mind the amount of carbon that would be required to ship those goods on a regular basis. I mean, to say that we love our Australian friends is not an understatement. Of course we do, but to prioritize Australian trade and export over our closest friends and neighbors and our most natural allies in America is tone deaf to a point where Helen Keller would just be outraged.
I can't even put into words, so I am going to read a couple of responses to her tweet.
Oh, do.
Somebody says, WTF, we flew 220 people to a market 16,000 kilometers away at the height of Australian summer to build, quote, relationships with a minister who has announced her resignation. We need a new government so bad. Looters. Yeah, exactly.
Looters.
Parliament is prorogued. The Prime Minister has been in 3 different European countries, then from Montreal to Vancouver, all in private jet in just the last 14 days. The Health Minister, Mark Holland, chastised hardworking Canadian families for taking a vacation in their car so they could spend time with their kids and bond during time away from work. Now, 220 people just flew from Canada to Australia for a trade mission, 220, an utterly mad carbon footprint. Again, if you care about those sorts of things. I don't, but the Liberals keep telling me they do. These flexes will be discussed when you call the election, trust me. Yeah, and she's not even running again. Stop.
It's a wild misuse of taxpayer funds, like absolutely egregious, wild misuse of taxpayer funds, especially when the country is in crisis, especially when it violates their carbon footprint, their carbon rules for everybody else, especially when Australia is not the first or the most sensible trading partner that Canada has. This is an exotic holiday for 200, a reward. This is a reward.
A reward.
You know how what is it, MLM? If you do really well, selling your Tupperware, your Avon, or whatever, you get an exotic trip to wherever. This is a reward for well-behaved and high-performing kleptocrats in the federal government. And
this is their LuLaRoe cruise.
That's exactly right. Yes, this is exactly what it is. Yes. And so, again, Australia, if you could send all of these people back with the foodborne illness, that would be most appreciated. Thank you so much. Do us a solid, Australia.
For the sake of YouTube, we're joking. We do not wish any foodborne illness on anybody. Please allow us to be remonetized, internet censors. Okay. Let's keep going. I got an ad read and then we'll get to a couple more fun stories. 1775coffee.com. Do you enjoy the free speech that Rumble is protecting and fighting for? Our show on Rumble is only possible thanks to our viewers supporting Rumble's platform by purchasing Rumble's products. Most of you drink coffee every day. That's why you have to try Rumble 1775 coffee. It's actually some of the best coffee, and it's the same price as the coffee you buy now, but it's way better. Rumble 1775 coffee is free from chemicals, rich in flavor. That is because their beans are sourced from high-altitude farms in Bolivia, handpicked, roasted weekly at their facility in Miami, then delivered fresh to your doorstep. 1775coffee.com. They don't care about carbon footprints. And as believers in freedom, buying from Rumble helps fight back against woke corporations like the worrywarts over at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Join the coffee revolution and the brew rebellion with Rumble 1775 coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com. Use code STUDIO. Get a free month supply of their cognitive boosting supplement, Limitless, when you buy 2 bags of their coffee. Think about that. It's a crazy deal. And the supplement is worth more than the 2 bags of coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com and try their amazing coffee. Do we have anything else that you wanted to talk about? And we have time for one more thing on the list.
You pick.
Okay, I'll pick. RCMP. No, we talked about the Blackhawks. Let's go to this one. The Prime Minister candidate hints that the Liberals could suspend the election. Definitely not their election, but the national election over Trump's trade war. So Karina Gould, for those of you who even remembered she was running at all, says that Ottawa, when we say Ottawa, we mean the Liberal government and not the city, although I think the two are interchangeable at this point. They could delay the next election if a U.S. trade war comes to fruition. That might be a reason not to go to the polls, she told reporters. This after the very same Liberals called an election in the middle of what they decided was a deadly pandemic.
Yeah, Karina Gould just said the quiet part out loud. This is their dearest wish is to delay the election by another year, and they can legally do that. Canada doesn't have fixed election dates. They can push it out until October 2026 at the latest. But if they do that, warning to the Liberal Party of Canada, if they do that, if they do not give Canadians the election that Canadians are screaming for and demanding, you are going to see a huge, huge push from the United States of America to annex Canada. The end. You want to risk that? You want to risk that, Liberals? You just push out that election. Otherwise, you're gonna pay a very, very steep price. You're gonna pay a very, very steep price for holding on to power when absolutely everyone is telling you that we are done with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so, once again, the theme of the show, absolutely tone deaf. Canadians, as you said, are screaming for an election. The Justice Centre is taking the federal government to court in, I think, if they are successful, a precedent-setting case. First time ever in Canada. The only other instance they could find of it in the Commonwealth happened in the UK, to block the prorogation, given the crisis at hand of the tariffs right now. And so Karina Gould is saying, oh, during this tariff crisis, it is okay to prorogue Parliament, to set aside the work that the Parliament needs to do, particularly to pass that border financing. That's okay. That's fine for Parliament not to be working long enough for them to run their election. Also, in the background, hide potentially their crimes with the Green Slush Fund, because they won't turn over those documents. That was, I think, one of the beneficial things for the Liberals that they did, because they were supposed to turn those over to the House. And then the House would turn them over to the RCMP, then they refused. So to imagine just saying, you know what, I'm not going to, you're caught embezzling at work, and then you just say, well, I'm not going to go into work. And the cops are like, okay, I guess that works. Like what? That's what the Liberals just did.
This is the insanity of the Liberal Party of Canada, that is just so corrupt and so morally bankrupt, that they are just pulling out every single trick in their hat to hang on to the vestiges of power. And this must not be allowed to happen, Canada. It just must not. Could you imagine the damage that a Liberal government that was allowed to hang on for another year past October could do to us? They could decimate us. They will decimate us. And this is where I think that you will be hearing screams from regular Canadians for the Americans to liberate us from our tormentors and our captives and the people that are holding us hostage.
Right. So it's not such a pressing crisis that the Liberals would have to go back to work. It's not such a pressing crisis that they would just ride into the next election in a confidence vote with their lame duck leader, Justin Trudeau. But it would be such a pressing crisis that they would deny Canadians the ability to choose the person to lead them through the crisis. It's absolutely galling. And 2 weeks ago, if somebody said that to me, I would be like, you know what? That's even a little bit too conspiracy-ish for me, that the Liberals would delay the election to try to hang on to power. I was like, no, that's a little bit, like, you're even too far out for me, and I will entertain just about any conspiracy theory. And here we are, Karina Gould saying the quiet part out loud.
This is the first I heard of this was at a Christmas party in early December, saying, no, the Liberals are going to try and find any way to keep themselves in power to the 5-year mark in Canada, which is October 2026. But again, you guys, make no mistake. You think Trump is going to negotiate with a government that Canadians that have lost confidence in, that Canadians have lost confidence in? He absolutely is not. They are going to get the absolute world's worst deal. And not only that, I think that he will punish them. He will punish them. and then by virtue of him punishing them, we will be punished. And this is just like this is just absolutely unthinkable and unconscionable by the Liberal Party of Canada to try and hang on when they know that they've done such a poor job, that Canadians are suffering, and that we need to give our new government a mandate to negotiate on our behalf.
I think they know something we don't, and we're not picking it up.
Well,
this
I'm picking
the
it up.
NDP.
Can I just
Yeah,
do
go
you
ahead.
think? Do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are external forces in the world happening right now. You have Emmanuel Macron of France calling for the militarization of the European Union. You have Vladimir Zelensky calling for the arming of a military that the European Union can use against Russia. I do believe that Justin Trudeau's extended trip from Paris all over Europe last week was rallying the troops around this idea of a world conflict. And I believe that the Liberals are setting themselves up to put us in a very, very dangerous position in Canada, considering the holes in our northern border, considering what Donald Trump is saying, trying to establish peace in Ukraine and the Middle East. I believe that they are positioning us for war. That is what I believe is happening.
See, I think Karina Gould and the Liberal Brain Trust know something that we don't know, and that is that but we probably could have guessed. Careful news watchers would have guessed that the NDP are not going to vote down this government. They know that they're safe to delay the election should they choose, to buy time for the new leader, which will be Coronation Carney, who will be crowned the new leader, and they will ask the NDP, thus give the NDP whatever they want, to keep the Liberal government in power with our unelected Prime Minister Carney for a year to try to make him more popular than the Conservatives. I think for her to say that indicates to me something going on behind the scenes that the Liberals nor the NDP have made public.
Absolutely agree. If we would be silly to think that Jagmeet Singh and the Liberals haven't already hammered out some sort of backroom deal that would keep all of his public sector union employees really, really well compensated through this trade war with the United States. This is the trade that he would make. He would say, listen, you give me unlimited funding to keep all of my public sector workers on the payroll during this time, and I won't vote against you in a no confidence vote. That's probably already happened. Yeah, and we called this months ago, Sheila. We called this months ago, and we said this is the danger with Mark Carney. Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh could make a sweetheart backroom deal and screw Canadians over for the better part of the next 2 calendar years, and we're in for it, Canada. Again, buckle up, be ready.
Yeah, if you think there's an energy project going forward, like an actual usable energy project, by which I mean not a green energy project going forward in this country with Mark Carney in charge, he's more of an environmental extremist than anyone in the Liberal Party right now. And I'm counting Stephen Guilbeault in that mess. He is to the left of the NDP on these issues.
Just wild that we could end up with this guy as our prime minister without a single Canadian ever voting for him ever. Just wild. Yeah. But don't tell me that this isn't alerting the Americans to our plight. This is going to do nothing but alert the Americans to our plight. And as much as Canada needs America, America needs Canada too. They know that we have a humongous open border on our north end of the country, and any weakness that we have there is also a weakness of the United States, and they're going to want to sew that up. So, I mean, I guess we can look forward to that.
Does anybody, I want to leave on like a note so we can sort of understand where our friends, our American friends are on this issue. I think it was DC Drano is the X account, and he, I think, put it pretty succinctly, except I can't find the tweet right now, about sort of the unfolding relationship with.
Oh yeah, he said. He said for our Canadian neighbors, just understand that we don't have a beef with you. We don't have a beef with you. Who we do have a beef with is your government, who is basically calls them lunatics and calls them out for putting the entire North American continent in a really precarious position, is what he did. Did you find it?
I think I did. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over to Olivia, and then we'll just close on that. And again, I reiterate, not wishing. Oh, that's the wrong. We're not wishing food poisoning on the Canadian delegation.
No, that was a terrible thing to dream about.
Okay. All right. So DC Drano, he wrote this. For those of you who don't follow him, you might want to. Rogan O'Handley, yeah, he's a lawyer who says he's been MAGA since 2015. And he wrote this, I think, the 16th, so 2 days ago. He said, I know this tariff battle has got some Canadians seemingly pitted against Americans, but I want to make something clear for the record. And I think this was like post people booing the American national anthem at the hockey game. Don't do that. What does it got to do with the hockey players? But anyway, let's keep going. He says, our beef is not with the Canadian people. It is with the Liberal Canadian government terrorizing the Canadian people. Tens of millions of Americans appreciate the Canadian truckers for what they did to destroy COVID protocols worldwide. We are now fighting your hostile government to help liberate you. Now, whether that means liberate us from the government or from their policies, whatever, but just know that they don't, it's not against us. I think they dislike Trudeau just as much as we do. And so they come at it from an American first viewpoint.
You know, that's a real good neighbor thing to say.
Yeah.
That was a real good neighbor thing to say. And we appreciate that sentiment so much because the vast majority of Canadians love their American neighbors. And for those of us in Western Canada, associate more with our American neighbors than we do with our Canadian ones, you know, further to the east. And so that sentiment is really, really appreciated.
Yes. Okay, I think we have put in our hour and a half, actually 1 hour and 41 minutes, just flew right by. Lise, thanks for joining me on the show today. I'm not sure who's in tomorrow, if it's you or David Menzies. I think it's you. Maybe it's David. I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah, we'll find out. Surprise. We'll surprise you tomorrow.
It'll be me anyway. But thanks, Lise, for coming along on this wild ride with me. And thanks to Olivia and everybody who works behind the scenes to make sure the show is there whenever you want to see it. Go ahead. You were going to say something. I don't want to cut you off.
No, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me, everybody. And yeah, it's just been a blast.
Thanks to everybody who pitches in. Every little bit helps to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. Thanks to our partners at Rumble. Do me a favor, everybody who's watching, if you like the show, take the link, share it with somebody to get around the big tech censorship that is keeping us from getting in front of the eyeballs of so many, particularly in Canada. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.
Will you balance the budget, and how quickly?
A couple of things there. One of the things we're going to do later this week is go through our new fiscal, what I would propose as our fiscal rules. Core to that is to reduce spending of the government, so to balance our operational spending over the course of the next 3 years. To be absolutely clear, what that means in terms of operational spending, it is all the programs that the government runs. It is the transfers to provinces, which, as you know, health and education transfers. It's transfers to individuals. It's debt service, which continues to increase as government goes up. So we will balance that over 3 years. Where we are willing to borrow is to invest and grow this economy. That is an absolute crucial point.
So there'll be a deficit.
It is a fundamental difference between the approach the government has taken up until now. It is a fundamental difference between the approach of Pierre Poilievre, which is a trickle-down, thousand flowers.
But there will be a deficit. It'll just be, you'll justify it because it's investing in the economy. Is that?
Investing in the economy at a time when we absolutely have to build as a country.